It doesn't work as well as it used to. But your website traffic crashing isn't really just because of AI or anything like that. It could be for a variety of reasons. One could be a loss of rankings. Another could be decreasing click-throughs. But a big one is a lot of algorithm updates. When we look at time, Google has continually made more and more algorithm updates over the years. Most of them are really minor and you never really notice them or see them, but there's quite a few major ones and they typically announce them. And this has created a lot of shakeup with rankings for companies. Sometimes people are losers, sometimes they're winners. But this is a big reason why a lot of companies are seeing a decrease in traffic. It doesn't mean SEO doesn't work. It just means a lot of the tactics that you're using are probably old and outdated. You also see a rise in zero-click searches. There are continually more and more zero-click searches that have happened over the years. And this is from Bain and Company. But when we look at zero-click searches, one thing to keep in mind is Google's also growing in popularity. So it's not like everyone's traffic has dropped, call it extra, because it went from 75% to 40%. It's not like people are seeing a 45-ish% drop in traffic. Google's growing popularity is also making it where they're still driving a lot of clicks to websites. And when you think about zero clicks, it's not just AI. They've had knowledge panels, Google Business Profiles, direct answers, answer packs, AI overviews, feature snippets. The list goes on and on. But this is a reason why you're not getting as many clicks, because years and years ago, they decided that when you type in what's the weather in Los Angeles, California, you shouldn't have to click on weather.com. Sure, weather.com's losing an impression, but most people who land on weather.com aren't going to click on a banner anyways. They were just looking for the weather, to be quite frank. So now Google just showcases you the weather, or use the app on your phone that showcases the weather wherever you're at. And these are examples of zero-click searches, and Google's becoming more and more helpful, which is what's also causing their usage to go up. People are also looking for instant answers. This is why there's things like AI overviews, and people also ask, and many of times they're above, the blue links that we're used to. People also ask, usually shove somewhere in between, but it's, the AI overviews are right at the top, because when my son is asking questions like, what's the bite force of a great white shark in PSI? That's really hard to monetize. He's just looking for data. He's just looking for an answer as quick as possible. And a lot of that traffic that was going to your website for phrases like that, it's not necessarily causing direct conversions in most cases. And AI overviews now show up for almost half of SERPs, depending on the country that you're in. And I think this is really important because, AI overviews don't show up in every single country. The data size has been growing, 8,000 plus keywords when we looked at this. And that's still quite a bit of keywords. It changes country by country. We've also done studies where we look at, 1 million keywords, et cetera, in certain countries, and you're seeing it for 40, 50% in many cases. But here's something interesting. During their I/O event, they reported a 10% increase in search activity for queries displaying AI overviews. And the reason being is people are more and more satisfied with the AI overviews over time. And AI search already represents 20% of Google's user base. Watch this number grow. Google's continually growing as a platform, and you're going to start seeing AI starting to be integrated in many more places, including AI mode. But of course, there's a zero-click challenge. If there were no AI overviews or no knowledge panels, your click-through rates are much higher, as you can see here. But the moment there's a knowledge panel or AI overviews, your click-through rate goes down. But at the same time, it's okay, because we found that when you have a knowledge panel, people actually trust your brand more, and it actually looks better versus when you don't have one. We also believe that no clicks doesn't mean no value. I know marketers are trained that you need a click to your website, but look at Nike. The reason Nike's grown to be such a powerful company is over the years, they had partnership deals with brand ambassadors. They had TV ads, and they still do. They have everything from billboards to emails that they send out to SEO that they leverage in paid ads. They leverage social media as well. And a lot of these channels don't really give them a ton of clicks. But when you look at the average touch point someone needs before they purchase, it's increased to around 11.1. The key is if you're not there, you're not getting the brand awareness. If you're not getting the brand awareness, your competitors are, and they're getting the touch points, which is causing people to buy from them instead of you. And zero-click mentions really does establish authority. When we look at impact on knowledge panels and brand trust, when you have one versus not having one, sure, you're losing out on some clicks, but people are more likely to trust you almost by double, right? It's not double, but call it 40, 80 to 90% more, which is a big jump. And Google isn't the only one stealing your clicks. Instagram and TikTok, they want people to stay on their platforms. Heck, they even make it where you can buy on their platforms without leaving. So it's not the only one. ChatGPT is taking a similar approach, and they have been for a long time. This is going to become more and more normal. You just want to make sure your brand shows up before other people's brands. Same with your products and services. And AI integration keeps users using Google. From AI mode, from AI overviews, we're seeing people use Google search more and more, and we think they're going to grow from 5 trillion annual searches really quickly to 6 or 7. We actually think it's going to grow at a much more rapid rate than it has been in the previous years because of the satisfaction people have with their AI responses, which in total will help also drive more traffic to websites because the percentage of people will click over to sites. The way people are searching on Google is also changing. We're seeing more people starting to search with longer tail phrases. When we also look at how many people perform question-based searches on Google, question-based searches were making up roughly 8% of Google searches before. I don't have the exact percentage on what they're making up now, but we see roughly more than double the amount of people asking question-based searches on Google because they can give you very specific answers when they weren't able to do that before. And Google is still driving the biggest traffic compared to most channels. When you look at all the other channels out there, Google's one of the biggest traffic sources. As I mentioned, they get over 5 trillion searches, as you can see here, per year. That's a big number. Yes, their click-through rates have gone down, but the usage has gone up. So even though the click-through rate's gone down, it still drives a ton of traffic. So question, right? Is SEO dead, or should we still do it to provide a good experience for visitors who actually make it to the website? SEO is not dead. SEO is changing in which you can't just look at clicks. You got to also look at brand impressions or impressions just in general to see how many times your brand is getting out there. In addition to that, SEO has also changed in which you're not just optimizing for Google, you're optimizing for all channels because there's over 50 billion searches a day that are happening on multiple platforms from like Amazon to Instagram to TikTok. And you want to create a good experience wherever someone is and make sure you show up. But you also want to show up wherever you can. Like if you're Louis Vuitton, you sell handbags, you want to make sure when people type in handbag related terms on Instagram, you're showing up. So then when they come to your website or they do a Google search for LV, they click on your website, they go there, and you're still providing an amazing experience. So if they type in luxury handbags, you still show up, and a percentage will still click through to your website, and you still provide a good experience for those visitors who still make it to your site. Even though website traffic is being affected, we're seeing a lot of people still visit websites, and it drives a lot of revenue. You can't ignore that channel. SEO still matters even when no one clicks, because when we look at how do people first hear about a company versus what caused them to buy, when you look at organic search as a channel, 19% of people heard about a company through organic SEO, yet it shows up for roughly 5% of the conversions. When you look at organic, it is a huge channel. You can't ignore it. We think with search growing more and more, especially because of AI and AI mode, you're going to see more people hearing about a company through organic search. and over time is showing less and less conversions. But as I mentioned earlier, 11.1 touch points. That's how many touch points people need on average before they're ready to purchase from a brand. You need to be on all these channels, not just the ones that leverage SEO.
So now let's talk about where the real opportunity is. So zero-click search is changing how brands show up, but it's also creating new ways to stay visible. For years, we all chased that #1 spot on Google, but now the real win is being cited in the AI overviews. And the shift is happening fast. So you can see here, user satisfaction with AI overviews grew from 37% to over 75% in just 8 months. So if your brand is showing up in those answers, you're in the conversation, even if users don't scroll or click through. And this isn't limited to any specific type of keyword. These overviews are showing up across all types of queries, whether it's brand, product, or service, and the volume is climbing fast. Since September, the presence of these summaries has doubled for multi-word queries. So if your strategy is still focused only on traditional SERPs, you might be missing where the real visibility is happening. And this is touching every industry. If you're in the health industry, over 60% of searches are now returning an AI overview. And home and garden is over 50%. And even categories like pets, transportation, and fashion, they are seeing a major presence as well. So the question is, what actually prompts AI overviews to show up? The biggest trigger is longer queries. So when someone types 6 or more words, there's a 77% chance that the search result includes an AI overview. And for now, it's mostly happening with informational intent. So nearly half of AI overviews appear on searches that start with how, why, or what. And that means you have a better shot at being featured if you have content that is clearly answering these types of questions. But here's the issue. AI overviews aren't always accurate. These two examples came from incredibly similar queries on the same day, and they gave completely different answers. And it's not that AI can't help, it's just that it doesn't always get it right. And that's why credibility matters more than ever. If you want to show up and be trusted, you have to be seen as a credible source. And that makes brand authority and content quality more important than ever. And we know Google is super important, but it actually controls less than a third of the daily search market for now. So platforms like Instagram, Amazon, TikTok, YouTube, even LinkedIn, these are now search engines too. So while optimizing for Google is still crucial, you don't want to overlook how people are discovering brands across these multiple platforms and formats. So staying in front of your audience today means being present anywhere answers are found.
It's important to understand how search behaviors are evolving and that people are using different tools for different things. One of the biggest shifts we're seeing is generational. Gen Z and younger millennials are searching in entirely new ways. According to Vox Media, 61% of Gen Z and 53% of millennials prefer using AI tools over traditional search engines. And that's not just a quick stat to skim over, it's really a critical piece of data to consider in your search strategy. This is because younger consumers are more likely to bypass Google altogether in favor of tools like ChatGPT, TikTok, YouTube, tons of other places to find the information they're looking for and even make purchase decisions. People also search different places for different types of queries. For example, we're seeing more and more people are searching LLMs for more informational type queries, those like what is type queries. Ultimately, this means if your content strategy is still based on only Google's search result pages, you could be missing where the next wave of buyers is searching. You need to create content that shows up where they're looking. In fact, we're already seeing massive shifts in traffic patterns. A study from Previsible projects that ChatGPT could drive 20% of overall referral traffic by the end of this year. And we're already seeing searches trending in this direction. For example, the events industry is seeing 900% growth over a 90-day period in ChatGPT referrals, and the e-commerce and finance industries are seeing 400% growth. And this is all without direct ad products or embedded tracking. So imagine what that number could look like once tools like ChatGPT start offering more outbound linking opportunities. The key takeaway here is really to get ahead of the curve or even arguably just keep up with it. You need to be considering LLMs specifically when making content optimizations. And this information isn't only true based on independent data. We're also seeing it with our own clients. I know I personally have had this conversation with multiple clients. They're increasingly interested in optimizing for AI searches. Between September 2024 and February 2025, we tracked a 123% increase in generative AI referral traffic across our client portfolio. And those numbers just continue to grow. While ChatGPT leads the pack in referrals by a long shot, we're still seeing consistent growth from other popular LLMs as well. So now that you understand the importance of AI search results, you're probably wondering, how do I know if my site is showing up in AI search results? Unlike Google, where you can get a pretty good sense of the search landscape by doing your own manual search, this isn't necessarily the case for LLMs. This is because LLMs outputs vary based on a lot of different factors like prompt phrasing, time of day, geography, and even device. So what you see in a ChatGPT answer may not match what your customer sees. So you can't rely on just a manual search to understand what's showing up in AI search results. That's why we recommend using purpose-built AI audit tools. So like with any software, not all tools are created equal. When you're evaluating AI visibility platforms, there are some key features to look out for. First, evaluate if the tool was built specifically for LLMs versus maybe just a retrofitted SEO software. Looking for something that's specific to those LLMs is going to definitely be the most beneficial. Consider if it uses skilled prompting to simulate real-world user behavior. Verify if the tool has robust reporting through competitor tracking, data exports, and trend identification. And if it's relevant to your business, consider if it has international capabilities. We've been putting a ton of time and effort in selecting tools that we want to work with. And right now, our favorites are Profound and Scrunch because they offer reliable, repeatable insights about prompts and have really robust reporting capabilities. This quick matrix compares key tools on capabilities like prompt scale, reporting strength, and overall LLM coverage. You can use it to identify where you're already using and where you might need to fill some gaps. For example, if you're only relying on rank tracking tools like SEMrush, you could be missing out on how your brand appears in AI overviews or Gemini citations. The goal here isn't just to track how you're doing, it's to understand and then use that proactively to shape your brand's visibility in this zero-click AI-first landscape.
So what does this all mean for your strategy? The answer starts with brand. It's not just who you are, or it's about how often you're mentioned, trusted, and how often people are searching for your name. And this is why brand investment matters. 1 in 3 Google searches is already branded. So people aren't searching for running shoes, they're searching Nike, and they're not just searching for tax software, they're typing in TurboTax. And that's brand recall in action. It drives that direct navigational traffic that will stay consistent during any algorithm changes and the evolving landscape of search as we're seeing now. The more known that your brand is, the more resilient that visibility becomes.
Yeah, and also with brand, the easy way to get your brand really out there is to just create a ton of content. And not the sake of just creating tons of regurgitated content that's similar to everyone else's. Think about what's new or missing within your space that you can end up creating, pushing out there, whether it's the social web or emails or webinars. It doesn't matter if it's B2B or B2C. The more content that you create and the more engaged you are with your community. Like, for example, I'll go to events in different parts of the world and speak at conferences. That's a way to build NP Digital's brand. And we leverage a combination of online and offline. But when you do this, the brand starts getting out there and then people start coming directly to you. I'll share some US stats with you. And this is an example of our brand getting out there. This is just US. Keep in mind we're global, so we get RFPs globally. But if I just look at the US alone, because I have them off the top of my head, in 2023, we got 16 RFPs. A RFP, again, is request for proposal. It's like someone hitting you up for a formal pitch, typically a large corporation where they have 8 or 10 players in there saying, we want all of you guys to compete for this massive contract. All right, we got roughly 16 of those, and it's a process typically led by procurement. So it's not a lead, it's a different type of lead where it's typically a large enterprise and they're going through a formal process to pick an agency. We got 16 of those in 2023. Fast forward to 2024, we were at 25. And people could be like, oh, the economy still sucks, it's terrible. That's roughly a 50% growth. Fast forward to today, This is June 10th, where we're doing this live. The last number I checked, I actually don't have the up-to-date numbers for June 10th, but the last time I checked was the end of May, and we were at 22 RFPs. So we're at 22, and at that time, we haven't, even actually right now, we're still not halfway through the year, but last year we had 25. That's just in the United States. When we look at our RFP count globally, we're seeing a similar trend. It's different percentages for each market, but we're consistently seeing things grow because we're constantly getting our brand out there. That's the example of how branding not only continually drives revenue and traffic over time and goodwill, but, as Morgan will explain, it's also your moat.
Yes, just like Neil just said, the brand is going to be your competitive moat. So you want people to recognize your name in a crowded space, and you want to stand out amongst your competitors. So instead of measuring success by clicks alone, we're thinking about influence. So are people talking about your brand? Are you showing up in these AI overviews? Because ultimately, that's what's going to protect you when the clicks dry up, and it's going to be what keeps the traffic and the revenue coming in. And when someone does land on your site, you cannot afford to waste the opportunity. If your website has a poor experience, such as if it's running slow or has a confusing layout, it's going to be game over. People will get frustrated and they will leave. But when that experience is smooth or fast and intuitive, even a small amount of traffic can convert really well. And so in the zero-click world, you really might only get that one shot at a first impression. Building your brand.
Before you go on, one story that I want to mention, Barbara, if you can go back one slide. When you're talking about making every visitor count, I was just at an event in France, and it was all large corporations, publicly traded companies, right? And the reason I mentioned the publicly traded companies is large companies tend to see data first on what's changing and shifting in marketing because they tend to have more volume. They already have an existing brand out there. They tend to rank well. They have authority. You guys get the point. They have social followers because they have tons of budget. So when I was in this event in France, we were talking about ChatGPT and conversions. And someone came up to me, they were from a very large corporation, and a few people actually mentioned this during the event. They're just like, we're seeing a higher conversion rate from ChatGPT to a conversion than any other traffic source. And I said, you're seeing that, but that's actually not what's happening. And they're like, what do you mean? And I'm like, a lot of people are using ChatGPT doing research. They're seeing and interacting with your brand, but they're not clicking through. The ones that are clicking through represent a portion of the people that ChatGPT is recommending your brand, your products, and services to. But only a portion of the total pie that's seeing and interacting with your brand on ChatGPT is actually clicking through. So then, yes, they're converting higher, but the intent's done, and they've already done their research on ChatGPT because it's not a quote-unquote traditional search engine. In essence, ChatGPT has a good conversion rate. It's not necessarily higher than Google or Facebook or Instagram. It's more so that you're having all this brand awareness, but the people who are clicking through are more ready to make a purchase versus some of the other channels. You just can't measure every single person that ChatGPT is recommending your brand to. At least you can't measure it as of today, but hopefully that'll change in the future. So you want to make sure your brand shows up, but when people visit your website, you want to make sure you have an amazing experience because they already did all this research and work to decide what company, what product, what service they're going to go with. You want to make sure you're not giving them any excuse or reason to not go forward with you. So make your website experience amazing, from usability to running A/B tests with tools like Crazy Egg. It's all about optimizing the user experience.
Let's talk about building your brand authority. Your presence and your brand authority means that you need to be trusted, which isn't something you ask for. It's something that you earn over time. And one of the best ways to earn it is through thought leadership. So sharing your opinions, your expert advice, any industry insights, it shows that you know your space and that you're a leader in the industry. So whether that's through blog content or social media or being a guest on a podcast or being on a webinar, these pieces of consistent and helpful content will build credibility with both users and search engines. So that recognition is what's going to keep you in the conversation. So even when the traffic is declining, you're still top of mind and people are still recognizing you and keeping that in the back of their minds. Thought leadership is just a piece of the puzzle, though. People also trust third-party validation, and that's why digital PR plays such a crucial role. When other sites or media outlets and influencers, when they talk about your brand, it's building equity and it's signaling to both people and AI that your brand is relevant, it's reliable. And first, you want to make sure you're creating valuable content that's worth citing. So media outlets love data-driven research, they love reports. And we know that leadership pieces are positioning you as that go-to industry leader and are building that trust and awareness. But free helpful tools can also help you gain organic backlinks and brand mentions. And then next, you want to have an outreach strategy. You should be consistently pitching bylined articles and interviews in those thought leadership pieces to build your offsite authority. And this is where you can really think big and have fun. You'll want to carry out campaigns that are going to attract media attention. So, for example, a giveaway or something like this company will give you $1,000 if you don't sleep for 3 days. Just something that's kind of out there and attracts that media attention. You also should apply for industry awards that can boost your credibility and your presence. And then there's relationship building. So cultivating those long-term partnerships with journalists and with influencers, collaborating with others in your industry, other thought leaders and associations, and encourage your customers to leave reviews and testimonials. When it comes to reviews, they are especially important. In our research, reviews ranked just behind relevancy and brand mentions in influencing ChatGPT recommendations, and that's huge. Good reviews aren't just helping the customers choose you, they're helping the algorithms surface you. So ask for them, highlight them, respond to them, because in this world with fewer clicks, trust is the new currency, and these reviews are going to be your receipts.
So tip number 2 is earn the click. In this zero-click landscape, our goal isn't just to show up, it's to stand out. And visibility matters, of course, but so does earning engagement. And you can't rely on Google to send users your way automatically. So how do you actually earn clicks when people are clicking less? Ultimately, you have to create content that adds unique value, which is something that AI summaries just can't currently replicate. The original research, data, tools, expert commentary, and storytelling. Every click you earn is a result of giving users something worth leaving the SERP for. And ultimately, the best strategy is pretty simple at a high level. It's just to create content that users actually want to click on. So how do we do this? The first tip is to dive deeper with your content. Most AI overviews offer high-level summaries, which are just quick surface-level takeaways. So if you want to attract clicks, you have to go deeper with your content. The ways you can do this are to create content that adds insight and utility beyond what AI can summarize on its own. That could mean things like creating step-by-step guides, offering annotated screenshots, expert commentary, or real use case applications. And definitely don't look over unique original research and data like surveys and case studies. Because when you back up with your content with unique insights or expert data, it offers depth and expertise, which makes you stand out. So think about what makes your company unique in this situation. You really probably don't have to dive as deep as you think you need to. Do you have a subject matter expert that can, speak and write content, author content on your website and talk about your space? You probably don't realize, even though you may not feel like an expert, you probably are. People are coming to your business and purchasing from you because you are an expert in the space. Leverage that for yourself and create content to back that up. Next is visual content. Visuals aren't just helpful, they're powerful search assets. AI tools like Google and Gemini are increasingly citing video content as trusted sources, especially YouTube. In addition, infographics, animations, and interactive tools are also all formats that catch attention, lower bounce rate, and drive engagement signals. Rich media has really always been a way to enhance your content, and AI search results are really just reinforcing this tried and true tactic. So if your content is text only, you might be leaving an opportunity on the table. When you make it visual, users want to see more and they want to interact more. The third tip is to double down on generative engine optimization, or GEO. You may have heard of this referred to as AI search optimization, answer engine optimization, or LLM optimization. But ultimately, all those names refer to the same thing, which means designing your content to be surfaced by language models. These models care about structure, clarity, and contextual relevance, and optimizing for them is what will future-proof your visibility as search becomes more and more AI-powered. So how do we optimize for AI search? The awesome news here is that best practices aren't really that different than traditional SEO. So you'll probably recognize some of these basics. For example, start with structured, skimmable formatting to make content easier to read. Think bullets, subheads, summaries. Use long tail natural queries that mirror how people are actually searching within these tools. Add schema markup to help LLMs understand the context of your content. And of course, keep EEAT in mind. Do things like quote customers and users because LLMs love real voices. And most importantly, just like traditional SEO, write for intent. Generative results provide helpful, complete answers. So if your content is delivering that, you're definitely keeping with the curve and staying ahead of the game. It's important to understand that generative engines like ChatGPT, Gemini, Perplexity, they don't just pull from one type of source. And they each have their own individual citation patterns. So in this slide, you can see exactly what they're pulling in and from where. Some of the sources we frequently see include Wikipedia, blogs, news, community content, and YouTube. But the main call out here is to get your brand into multiple source types. How do you repurpose your content and leverage that across multiple sources? Ideally, you want to feed formats that feed this LLM ecosystem. In the next few slides, we'll talk about a few different types of generative engines and dive deeper into how each of them cites their sources and how they're all a little different. So first up is Google AI Overviews. When we analyzed search results, we saw a broad mix of sources, which is relatively unsurprising given the diversity of traditional Google search results. Most frequently, blog-style content and mainstream news were cited, but we also saw sources like community forums like Reddit and YouTube. This tells us to rank in AI overviews, you need multi-channel content. You can't just publish on your own site and call it a day. You need to focus on authority and distribution. To show up in these results, aim for deep and focused content. Don't just focus on your homepage and your core landing pages. This is because LLMs favor specific articles, listicles, and detailed guides that directly answer user queries. And it also helps to blend credibility from multiple angles. Again, we talked about adding expert commentary or reviews for community validation. Make sure to think beyond your own site and don't ignore community platforms like LinkedIn or Reddit, where conversations are happening related to your business and your industry. Ultimately, your goal should be to diversify your content footprint across the primary sources that AI pulls from, not just the ones that drive clicks. ChatGPT is quite stricter in its citation behavior than Google AI Overviews. It heavily favors established, factual, non-commercial sources. Wikipedia alone accounts for 27% of its citations, and reputable news outlets like Reuters are also frequent sources. We rarely see vendor blogs and product pages cited here. This means if you want to appear in ChatGPT answers, you need to build authority in neutral and trusted ecosystems like Wikipedia, authoritative blogs, and earned media. This requires a digital public relations strategy that Morgan was alluding to earlier that helps promote your content and ultimately boost authority. To get cited by ChatGPT, you kind of need to think like a fact checker. So focus on being verifiable and unbiased. Here's a few tactics that you can do: contributing to or building a robust Wikipedia page and presence for your brand, again, because Wikipedia is highly sourced by ChatGPT, getting mentioned in high authority blogs and mainstream media, and avoiding overly commercial content that LLMs tend to filter out. Basically, you want to become a source that adds trust to an AI's answer. If your content sounds too promotional, you're less likely to be cited. Next up is Google Gemini. Gemini takes a more blended approach of the previous two. It values blogs and news like Google Overviews do, but it also really loves video content. YouTube is its single most cited domain. Community content also makes up a small but notable slice. And in general, Gemini tends to reward sources with depth and variety. So that means your best bet here is to focus on authoritative community spaces and maintaining a consistent presence across platforms like YouTube, your blog, and relevant news platforms. To earn Gemini citations, you need to mirror its content mix, which if you're already thinking about the first two, you're probably going to win here as well. But that includes high quality blog posts, authoritative mentions in industry news, and video content. Gemini rewards depth and diversity. So when you lean into both, you'll win here.
And if you don't like creating video content, I still recommend you do it manually, but you can always use AI to help you out. If it's personal related, like you need a human on the screen, you can use tools like HeyGen for that. But I recommend that you ideally do it manually, that we see videos performing better than the AI created ones, but something is better than nothing.
Absolutely. And finally, we'll focus on Perplexity. Perplexity's sonar mode is highly nuanced compared to the other platforms. It focuses highly on trusted expert sources and industry-specific review platforms. While blogs still account for 38% of its citations, what really stands out is how Perplexity also adjusts by topic. So for example, trusted expert sources in the finance space might be NerdWallet or Investopedia. So if you're mentioned by those platforms, that's really going to boost things for you. Or for product reviews, Consumer Reports. You'll see these sources and citations adjust based on industry and topic, depending on what's being searched and what's being referenced. So if you're in a niche space, this is actually a really huge opportunity to become a go-to review source for your category. If you can become the go-to source in your particular industry, this is a really good way to get cited by Perplexity. So ways that you can do this are to do things like partnering with high trust review sites, creating product comparison content, how does your product compare to your competitors, and publishing educational content with data and specificity. So again, you're hearing a lot of the same themes here, which is beneficial. So you don't have to, get too hung up in each individual one, but it helps to know the nuances. Each individual AI platform kind of has its own unique way of delivering search results, but what's really consistent across all of them is that the more complete your digital footprint, the more likely you are to be included in AI answers. And continuing that conversation, this slide really brings it all together. The key takeaway here is that AI visibility doesn't necessarily need to be a separate strategy. It's really an outcome of really excellent SEO. So to rank on AI results, again, these things should look fairly familiar if you already have an SEO strategy. So thinking about things with strong Google knowledge panels, robust, well-sourced blogs and guides backed by data and expert insights, engagement in forums like Quora and Reddit, structured content, and of course, EEAT will always keep saying that matters. Keep your author bio strong, cite reputable sources, and don't let your content go stale. AI models are trained on everything out there, so make sure what they find out about your brand is what you want them to learn.
And the fourth tip, let's zoom out and talk about something foundational, and that's audience ownership. As these platforms give fewer signals and more answers are happening offsite, it's getting harder to trace the full user journey. But what you can control is the relationship that you're building directly with your audience. And that's where first-party data comes in. It's not just more accurate, but it's also more durable. Algorithms change, traffic sources shift, but that first-party data is going to give you a direct line to your customers. You own it and you decide how to use it. And that direct connection becomes that foundation for everything else you want to do. It makes true personalization possible, it powers loyalty, and it's what sustains your brand's influence long-term. But that ownership isn't automatic. You need three things to make first-party data actually work. First, give people a good reason to share their data. So that could be something like offering an in-depth white paper or original research, or maybe a helpful calculator or tool or access to content they can't get anywhere else. It needs to be worth their time. Second, you want to make sure that you can unify that data once you have it. And this is where a customer data platform becomes essential. A good one will help you pull everything together into one clear view of your customers across channels and across devices. So that gives you no more siloed insights. And third, and most importantly, you need to use that data. Don't just collect it, you want to put it to work. So whether that's sending smarter emails, personalizing your homepage, or building custom offers, that goal is to create relevance. And that's how you move from passive data collection to active relationship building. So when done right, you're not just relying on platforms, you're building your own ecosystem of trust and value. Now let's talk about how SEO and paid work together. It's easy to think of SEO as the slow burn and paid as the quick fix. And yes, paid can get you immediate visibility and SEO does take time, but the real value shows up when they work together. So you want to use paid to test messaging, to fill content gaps, support product launches, while your organic pages are gaining their traction. And then you can use SEO to reduce your reliance on paid over time, especially for high intent queries that you want to win long term. And you don't want to forget about the synergy. So you want to retarget organic visitors with ads. You want to reinforce your SEO strategy with learnings from your paid campaigns. You want to think of it less as a ladder and more of like a feedback loop. So paid fuels SEO insights, and then the SEO builds authority and reduces your paid spend. When they're working together, they drive smarter and you're going to get a more sustainable growth. So this is a great question. What if people are clicking, then how do we prove that our content or strategy are working? So this person really wants to know how to report on all of it. So where are conversion and lead gen metrics via zero-click searches hidden, and how do you explain this to clients? So for years, our success has been measured by clicks, sessions, and conversions. But with zero-click results in AI summaries becoming so much more common, a lot of these are kind of starting to fade. And it doesn't mean that your strategy failed. It just means that your measurement model needs to catch up. So you can't rely on the same KPIs if the landscape has shifted. So instead of chasing what's disappearing, you want to focus on what's emerging. And that doesn't mean we throw out the old metrics altogether, but it does mean that we need to expand how we are measuring success. So now we're paying attention to things like AI visibility. Is your brand being cited in those AI overviews? Are they showing up in ChatGPT and other AI generated answers? You also want to look at offsite signals. So are other websites, is the media or influencers, are they linking to your content even if users don't click through? That referral traffic is still going to show your reach and your authority. And then brand interest and engagement. So are you seeing a rise in branded search volume or positive sentiment and social interaction? These are all signs that people are aware of you and paying attention without there being any clicks involved. So the goal here is to shift from just tracking traffic to measuring your influence. So where a lot of decisions are made before a click even happens, being top of mind matters just as much, if not more, than being clicked. And you can quantify that impact. Even when clicks are low, you're not just keeping up, you're moving ahead.
So some key takeaways. Look, in today's world, you can't just track clicks. You got to also look at impressions and visibility. You also got to make sure that your brand is building trust. And one way to do that is to show up no matter what people are typing in and searching. Because even without a click, if people constantly see your brand, it helps them remember it. They're much more likely to buy from you versus a brand that they don't see that often. And you also want to make your content too good to not click. You got to give them a reason to click over to your website. It can't just be, hey, how fast does a cheetah run? Cheetah runs 63 miles an hour. I'm making up the speed, but it's somewhere around there. And you don't want it to end up being where someone's just like, oh, okay, sounds good. I got the stat. Well, there's a cool GIFographic that I call that shows a cheetah running and how fast it can sprint and the movement and how it moves and runs. That's a reason for people to click over because they're learning more about the cheetah. Just putting stats on your website and having the AI overviews pull from it, that's not really a reason to get people to come over to your website. You need to make your content exceptional so that way people have no choice but to click. Now, if you need help to grow your visibility, your traffic, and your brand trust and do well in today's world with all the changes, feel free to take your phone, scan that QR code, and it'll take you to NP Digital where you can fill out your information and we'll be in touch. We've been doing a lot of work with LLMs and the results have been amazing for our customers, both on the ChatGPT front as well as the Google front. Or you can just go to npdigital.com if you want to schedule a call with us. And again, we can help you no matter what size you are and no matter what country you're in because we operate globally. and we have an SMB division all the way up to enterprise. So questions, let's dive right in, Colin. What do we have on tap?
Well, I feel like we addressed the most popular question as a part of the last few slides in the presentation, but I'm going to give y'all an opportunity to maybe pile on here. That question was, I was wondering how you framed this visibility increase, decrease in clicks with clients who have historically thought about traffic, and they're seeing all of these declines. Like, in addition to the slides that we just spoke to, is there anything that we want to like add on there? Any tips or tricks or little things that we should be doing? Case in point, like one example is maybe we pay a little more attention to brand, because if we're surfacing visibility and AI overviews for a lot of non-brand things, there is brand recall. So maybe that's actually prompting more branded searches, whereas SEO has historically been about net new customers, non-brand, etc. Any additional things that you guys want to pile on with there? Because that question came up time and time again. And we can start with Neil and then go over to Nicole and Morgan.
So one thing to keep in mind is, and we showed a graph of this, when you look at how people first learn about a company, a lot of it was through SEO, but the conversion was around 5% for last touch. It's always been a channel where it really helps build a brand and it gets your brand out there. This is just accelerating it even more. So yes, you're not seeing as many clicks, but it's getting your brand out there more and more, because the number of searches that are being performed on Google are increasing at a drastic rate due to AI and because of LLMs like ChatGPT, right? I know it's a separate platform, but still the number of people that are using these platforms is rising at a rapid rate. OpenAI just made an announcement, I believe it was yesterday. They are now at a 10 million annual recurring revenue run rate. 10 billion, not million, billion. These platforms are growing in popularity at a very rapid rate. And I think their goal is by like 2029 to hit like 129 billion in annual revenue or something crazy like that. You have no choice but to adapt and start looking at things like impressions and goodwill from your brand and how many times your competitors are showing up. Because if you're not showing up, someone is taking your customers.
Anything else?
I'll jump in. I think another really good benefit is, even with certain brands seeing traffic down or clicks down, a lot of our clients that we've been talking with actually aren't seeing their conversions actually impacted that much by this. So that's definitely like something to keep in mind. I know, like, if you're specifically at a larger company and you're more focused on the top funnel, maybe it's a little bit more concerning for your specific KPIs. But in general, when you're ultimately looking at conversions, we're not seeing a huge decrease in that. I might be able to answer like a second question within this too, because I think there's a lot of concern, especially with smaller companies, about how you can scale your content marketing when we're talking about, you need to show up in different places, and, how can you use your time and resources in a great way, in a smart way, to adapt to this. And I think in a way there's almost a benefit for smaller companies, because things are shifting where, it's not necessarily the best strategy to go out and create a piece of content about every single, query that people are searching for, every single keyword that people are searching for. Because there's a growing emphasis on just quality content and also rewarding people that have a unique take, I think it's a lot easier for smaller brands and bigger brands to really focus on the core pillars of their business and go all in on quality versus quantity of content. What are your core pillars? What are your 3, 4, 5 things that are most related to your business that you can go all in on and really create in-depth, amazing content? You don't need to create a ton of content. You can just create a few pieces that are really robust and then repurpose those for various channels. You can create a single blog that's really in-depth about a specific aspect of your business, something that's related. Have someone at your business provide expert insights. If you have proprietary data, you can incorporate. And then you can take out little snippets of that and put it out on social media. You can interact in community forums. Test out what is most impactful for your business. But I think the benefit is really that you can do less with more, and you're going to be rewarded for it.
Yeah, just to add on to that, when it comes to brand and promoting your content, Like Nicole said, kind of viewing across the different platforms and how you want to interact with them. So you don't want to just show up in Google search. If you're wanting to share your content on social media, you can do like newsletters, email marketing, like Nicole said, even forums. So this way of promoting your content gets like your brand name out there too. So the more that other people are referencing your brand, the more likely it is to be picked up in those AI overviews. So it's not like they're, they may not be clicking through to your website, but you're gaining awareness with users and audiences that you may not have even been reaching before.
Good stuff. Thank you all for piling on there. So this one's come up a lot too, and we addressed it for the most part, but there's a follow-up here probably for Neil. How are y'all tracking AI search visibility? Do you have an affordable tool that's reliable? So, we mentioned Profound and Scrunch AI. Those are two that we're using all the time. I mean, there are things within SEMrush for AI overviews. So Neil, the question came up more than once. Are there plans to pull some of this stuff into Ubersuggest because the word affordable kept coming up?
Yeah, so you will see it soon. We've been testing a lot of different solutions. The biggest problem we had with it was actually the cost for the data. It is really expensive. The data is nowhere near as cheap as the data we can get for Google. But we're down to a few potential vendors where we think we can make some of the economics work, where not only can we make it affordable, but hopefully we can make part of it free. And then if you want more, you can pay. So then that way you can get some data, even if you don't have money to spend on tools.
Thank you for that. So this one, Neil, I was trying to find the chart because I know we did a short survey on this. Has anyone tried, or maybe for our clients, have we tried using full AI content and kind of compared it with human content, and maybe even like compared that against like human and AI content? So the question is, and sorry to put you on the spot again, Neil.
No, I know the answer.
But which one works better?
Yeah, so it was an experiment with 68 websites, 744 articles were created, half human written, half AI written. The AI written ones did have some slight human help. After a 5-month period from an organic traffic perspective, the human content had 5.44x more monthly organic visitors versus the AI content. Doesn't mean AI content's bad. It's just typically we see that AI content doesn't generate as much traffic, but AI is really useful for things like research, ideation, helping with the tone and rewrites and updates. But AI content in general, it's taking all the data that's out there on the web and then creating an output based on that. And what that does is it creates a lot of regurgitated information. When you're just regurgitating information that's already on the web, it's hard to get tons of search traffic through that model. You need to focus on stuff that's new that no one else is talking about, or very few people are talking about at least.
Awesome. So related to that, I don't know, this is a viewer looking for advice. If I have AI content on a specific URL and I replace the AI content with some unique quality content, will the specific URL be flagged, or would you all suggest that maybe you kind of like start from scratch and create a new URL with the fresh content? Any tips or thoughts there?
It's not about a URL. It's not like it being flagged. It's about just focusing on the user experience and making sure it's amazing. When I say user experience, I'm not just talking about the website speed or the usability of the page. I'm also talking about the content. What's the intent that they're searching for, how they're landing on the page, and does the content answer their questions and help them in every single way imaginable, where they don't need to go to another competing website to get more information. So when you think about user experience that way, and you can continually update it, whether you update it with AI or human, it doesn't matter. The key is really going above and beyond to help. Google's not saying that we hate AI content, we're never going to rank it. It's just the quality of most AI content sucks, which is why it's not doing as well. If the AI content was better than the human content and provided more value to the user, they would rather showcase up the AI content.
Yeah, here's a tip. look for hyphens in the content, because for whatever reason, ChatGPT and others, they like to use hyphens often instead of commas. So there's a little tip for you. Neil, someone asked, I believe you mentioned a tool for quick video creation. We've got someone asking
HeyGen.
what tools, what's it called again? I'm sorry.
HeyGen, HeyGen.com.
Okay, cool. And then we got 1 minute, so one more question, and this is for the ladies. Have you seen any impact, or like what's the scoop with everything that we were talking about, zero-click searches and AI mode and AI overviews and all of this stuff? Like, how is that impacting local? Like, have we seen like crazy stuff going on with the map packs and like near me stuff? Are all of those questions sort of being addressed within overviews? Like there were a couple questions about local, like any experience, in what you've seen, all of this do to local would be helpful. And maybe we start with, since Nicole's on the top, we can start at the top.
Sure. Yeah, I think it kind of goes back to what we were talking about throughout the presentation, is that the strategy is not really all that different compared to how we've been doing, traditional SEO when it comes to this. Knowledge panels and map packs are still really dominant, really relevant to local searchers. So keeping your Google Business Profile accurate is definitely still a must do when you're local. The user experience on the website, the things that Neil was just talking about, that's still all really relevant and not really changed or impacted negatively by AI overviews. If anything, it's just giving another opportunity for you to show up. One thing you can do, and maybe it's a good way for me to touch on it, pass over to Morgan, but being involved in your community and, being part of community organizations and working with like local news outlets is definitely like beneficial in this situation. So Morgan, I know like that's up your wheelhouse. I'll pass it to you there.
Yeah, I also think reviews are going to be especially important as well. And that's kind of interacting with the local community, right? So AI does pull from reviews, and it's just always important because people are looking at reviews. And that's going to be like the biggest driver of who is choosing you or your competitors. And so I think, like Nicole said, it's kind of the same strategy that we've been using. It's just doing a little bit extra, just focusing a little bit more on the brand mention, and really just like getting those good reviews and just really leaning into the community, like Nicole said.
Awesome. Well, we're right at time. We're a minute over. So that's all I got.
And if you guys want to work with us, or you need any help with your marketing, whether it's on LLMs or anything related to AI or just general digital marketing, hit us up, npdigital.com. Thank you guys for your time today. Really appreciate you guys joining.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.